Hello and welcome to Straight Talk, Supply Chain Insights, the podcast for your supply chain leader who is on the go and wants to be in the know. And now, your host, Lora Cecere.
Welcome to Straight Talk with Supply Chain Insights. This is a podcast designed to tell it straight. My name is Lora Cecere and I'm the founder of Supply Chain Insights, and this program is designed for the business leader who used to be on the go, but not so much now that we have a pandemic, and wants to be in the know. We have a lot of people listening from their homes because we're not able to get around because, we have to stay in place. Today I'm interviewing Bob Betts, and Bob is one of the founders of a blockchain company called Blocnet, and it's currently being reconfigured, and I wanted to interview Bob and find out a little bit about what's happening with blockchain, what he's found out. But Bob, before we start the content, tell the group a little bit about yourself.
I'm a 40-year supply chain person. I've been doing supply chain as a CIO, as a VP of supply chain, a consultant. As you know, Laura, I was global supply chain leader for SAP for several years, and I've been re-engineering companies from their supply chain for the last 30 years.
Well, tell me about Blocnets and blockchain and what you were trying to do, and then let's talk about what you found out about the market for blockchain.
Yeah, Blocnets was founded basically as what I call an initial trial company or a flyer by three groups: myself, my old company, Main Street, a company called Dees Research, and then a gentleman that I've been associated with on and off for the last 20 years, Dr. Bill Killingsworth. Bill and I have done many consulting projects in aerospace and defense. So we thought we'd put the company together, and we were really looking for the convergence of three technologies. One was the ability to grab and store a tremendous amount of information across very, very large and secure extended supply chains. And of course, blockchain technology can do that. But we were also looking for an answer to many of the problems we encountered at the large aerospace and defense companies. And those things are common to all supply chains. Do you have the multi-tier visibility you need? How are the companies communicating with each other to do things like S&OP and demand and supply planning, the basics? What can be automated? There's a tremendous amount of data in these systems. So what can you automate? How do you collect the data? How do you make sense of the data? And then finally, the ultimate answer that we hear from, I'm sure, just everybody in supply chain: where's my stuff? Very simple question. Where is it? Am I going to stay on plan? Am I going to be off plan? Okay, if I'm off plan, where and why? Am I going to get my materials on time? The very, very what I call basic blocking and tackling questions. So we formed Blocnets to answer those questions and answer it in a way that is non-intrusive to the production or transportation distribution process. Secondly, can be run by just about anybody. And then thirdly, it had to integrate back to the ERPs. And we focused on SAP first for obvious reasons.
And what did you find out?
What did we find out?
How mature is blockchain and how well does it fit those needs?
Blockchain technology it's not mature, given that it's only a few years old in reality, being able to put it commercially together. But it is incredibly robust. And if you build any network correctly, it is incredibly stable and secure. And that's the trick. You have to build the network correctly from the nodes with the security. And then your applications have to respect the fact that the network is built that way. It's designed to be secure. And you can secure just about anything, which is what I liked about it. We've secured 3D printer files, CAD files, international exchange files for example, for shipping and border crossings. You can store just about anything in a blockchain. And that's the part that I liked about it the most. and it is raw data, and it's qualified data. So many times, if you think about a problem, for example, in supply chain planning, where you're trying to plan off of data, and some of the data is old, some of the data may be fresh, and you get this problem of, do you really have qualified data to start with? With the blockchain, the way we approached it, you always had the right data. It was always present, it was always there, it was always ready, and it was highly qualified because we partnered with Intel and AT&T to gather data via IoT sensors from all over the network. Now, we didn't do it in the sense that we centralized everything. We had a fully decentralized blockchain network with literally thousands of nodes potentially. We only got to test about, I think our largest network was about 55, 60 nodes, but everybody acted independently. They had their own operations, and then they published to the network or exposed to the network only the data that was necessary to operate the supply chain and what they felt comfortable sharing across the network. So we found a lot of this had to do with what I think of as good old system engineering. You know, you've got to design the system to do what you want. You've got to make sure that you've got the security protocols there the way they're necessary for the data, and then you've got to know basically what you're trying to achieve with the system. That's critical. And the blockchain technology itself frankly, it's a wonderful underlying technology to manage a very, very large distributed network. And the way to think about it, Laura, is right now today, most of those connections are point-to-point EDI. And a point-to-point EDI system where you have literally thousands of combinations of interactions is just not feasible right now. You can't afford it. And yes, I know you can go through exchanges and other things like that, but they tend to centralize the data, which again, if you're trying to make everybody be somewhat autonomous, you're trying to gather these smaller companies into the network, which are the weakest link in the supply chains right now. Those exchanges and things are just get cumbersome and get in the way because you've got to log on to them separately. You got to put data in them, upload them, and people just don't want to do it. I mean, if you want an example of this, you can look in aerospace. There's something called ExoStar, and it's basically an exchange server, and a lot of companies use ExoStar as a exchange server, as a file repository, a lot of different ways. But the actual compliance of using the ExoStar as part of the process is challenging because it's always extra work, and it's not a small amount of extra work. It's a lot of extra work in some cases. Whereas with the blockchain and the blockchain-based supply chain applications, it becomes no extra work because you're just collecting the data as you go within your normal processes. So there's good things about the blockchain technology and what was done, what we did. The biggest issue in the whole thing is the CIOs and many of the technologists are afraid. It's something new, something different, and I don't want to bet my career on it. So you get pilots, we get successful pilots. You'll see some successful networks, both private and public. But you know, the adoption of the blockchain technology, even once it's proven, and the value of it is visible, is going to be very, very slow, much slower than we ever anticipated.
And Bob, is that because the processes are inside out and they're not focused on networks, or is it because people just can't conceptualize how to use it, or because the adoption by large players like SAP and Oracle, and IBM is pushing it, but the deployments are few, that they're just not driving it into their apps? What's the root cause?
I think you've hit on a few of what I think was the peripheral causes. I think the biggest issue is just fear. It's something new. It's something different. And the IT staffs in these large companies, they get worried about it. They get fearful that they're about to bet, a company or part of their company on this new technology, and they're not comfortable with it. Many people in these IT groups do not understand the security levels available within the blockchain technology, plus and I'm going to say it very bluntly, plus what I think of as the entropy of all of the partners, all the players, the different protocols, the different standards. It's a lot to understand. And if you're worried about running your supply chain day to day, or your IT system, your ERP systems and so forth day to day, you're not focused on these new things that are somewhat complicated and difficult to understand. And let's face it, building a network, a peer-to-peer network system is nearly 180 degrees away from how you would implement an ERP system, simply because you've got so many partners, so many different priorities, and trying to get them all together and understand the objectives and how they can secure their own data and how they can replicate the data across the network and how you get one copy that's secured. It is a difficult thing for people to get their head around. I mean, to give you an idea, we built a very sophisticated demonstration system. We spent a lot of money on it, and it was all tactile, visual, trains moving around between manufacturing sites, warehouses, retail sites, so that people could get their hands on this thing and see how it worked. It was very successful. People loved it. But again, trying to get through the barriers of budget, control, prototyping, all of the other factors, it's going to take time. And I laud IBM. I think IBM's in a very unique position, given their size and scale, to do some very innovative things here. But the companies like SAP and Oracle, they're heavily vested in the very, very large ERP systems, they're going to move much, much slower because they've got such a large vested interest in the ERP. I mean, to give you an idea, SAP has the innovation group, and we were part of that. We were the number 17 innovation partner at one time. And what we were doing is collecting the data in the blockchain through the IoT sensors with Intel. And we have a design actually implemented, the ability to present inventory back to SAP's ERP system so that it is perpetually accurate. So the cycle counting structures, all the distributed data structures, and everything else that goes into, for example, SAP's EWM and WM and IM structures, we had those extended and built into our application so we could bring it all through the blockchain and present it to the ERP. And we got a little uptake on that. A couple of companies that saw it got surprised, and they loved it. But it's a very different amount of data. It's a lot of data, and it's a lot of very, very accurate data. So it's just a matter of time, I think, before it moves along. But it's not going to move at the pace that everybody's excited about and all the buzz about. This is going to be a slow evolution.
Well, Bob, as you know, I coordinate this Network of Networks group where we've done some testing of blockchain, and we invited you to come and speak, and unfortunately, conditions didn't allow you to do that. But, We've also seen the same kind of dynamic with the group, and one of the issues is that there isn't a point person in major manufacturers that are building networks at a business level, and there's a lot to take in, the standards, the roles, responsibilities, the design of multi-tier processes, the implications for supplier development, corporate sustainability, and I don't find that there's anyone working on it. What I find is people in IT that are typically baby boomers, have worked on EDI, very focused on EDI standards, or I find maybe somebody in the sales department that has worked on getting orders or automation of VMI because that helped drive, compliance to trading partners on the sales side. But I don't find leaders in organizations that are really actively building value networks. And part of the issue is that our processes are inside out. They're not outside in. But do you think this pandemic will change that? Because, now the whole premise of ERP and transactional systems, which are inside out and very focused on finance, there's a need to really orchestrate market to market. Do you think that one of the implications coming out of this will be the building of outside-in processes and value networks, or do you think we're just a long ways away?
There's two answers. I'm hopeful that a lot of companies will start to see the opportunity of how to build these interactions. But I think your other point is very, very right. I think it's going to take time, and it's a completely different way of thinking. Again, putting together a network to solve a problem, whether it be an aircraft or a ventilator. Think of what we all need now. We need ventilators, right? And there's a worldwide shortage, and you hear about it every day. And you hear about companies raising their hands saying, we're going to build ventilators. We're going to build ventilators. Well, if you look at a ventilator at its very core has some fairly sophisticated elements to it that not just any company can go build. And let me walk through this, and you're going to hopefully understand what I'm saying here. So you take a ventilator, and let's just break it apart as a bill of material for a moment. You know that there is some very sophisticated electronics in there. Now, as good as Ford may be at building cases, and Elon Musk and his group can build cases and some mechanical elements, the control boards inside a medical device are very sophisticated and very complex because you've got a human interaction with it. So you've got safety protocols, you've got all kinds of extra protocols to make sure it doesn't overrun the person. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of software that goes in there and a lot of controls that most people wouldn't think about. Now, if you think about it from a supply chain perspective, yeah, there are companies that can do that and build those, and they're experts at building what I call small, fast locks. And a company that comes to mind right off the top of my head that could do this is Jabil. This is what they're good at. So from a networking perspective, if I'm going to go build a ventilator, I got to go find that control those control boards, a company that can build the control software for me. So I've got to go find Jabil. I may have to go find a software company like Medtronic or some of these other guys to help me build that piece. Then I need a pump, and I need a medical grade pump. Now, who can build medical grade pumps? I got to go find them. Ford can't just say, I'm going to build a medical grade pump. You've got their medical grade pumps are smoother in reaction. You've got almost an infinite or analog-like setting between high pressure and low pressure, just to give you a couple of examples. And then you've got all the medical grade tubing, casing. You've got medical grade valves to make sure you don't get backwash. So as we approach what we're doing with these ventilators, why is nobody looking at it from this perspective? Saying, I'm going to take the best companies we have in the country, and I can network them together and build a ventilator pretty quick. Instead of saying, I
agree with you more. Why are we not taking experts in the supply chain across the value network that creates ventilators, putting them together? Because all of those circuits, all of those boards, all those medical grade pumps, all those medical grade valves, there's a lot of IP and a lot of nuance to that. And where are the inventories and what are those supplier relationships? So when I listen to the news, I just seethe because, okay, first of all, we're on the back foot and it's a size 12 back foot. And second of all, there's no understanding of supply chain. And third, we're not building networks and bringing knowledgeable people together. So I couldn't agree more. But, I think it's because we're so focused on regional manufacturing supply chains and only on manufacturing, not really looking at source, make, and deliver together and not really building value networks. But do you think we'll learn out of this pandemic that value networks matter?
One of the things I'm hoping occurs, and it's a hope right now, is that one of the companies, whether it be Medtronic or someone else, and I'm using them as an example, And I'm not saying they're bad. They build marvelous things and are a great company. But one company like that's going to look at this and go, okay, wait a minute. We've got to look at our ability to manufacture these things a lot different. We can't think of this as a internal vertical thing, supply chain. We've got to go get parts from the best companies in the country. We've got to share, to your point, share some of our IP. We've got to look at different ways we manufacture, like, for example, 3D printing and things of that nature, to help engage in this fight we're in. And I'm hoping that one of the executives or some of the executives in this, one of the supply chain folks will wake up and say, wait a minute, we've got to attack this as a holistic problem, not just us making as many as we can. Because I can guarantee you, my wife's tired of me hearing about saying this, we can manufacture as many as we need. If we pull the network together, we could almost have infinite capacity to build what's necessary as fast as we need it. It's just a matter of pulling the pieces.
Why we aren't accessing the available inventories that are work in process for ventilators and N95 masks, etc., and not sending commercial jets to China to pick up the inventory.
Well, remember, their systems have been shut down, many of them, for the last 2 months.
But a lot of the global manufacturing inventory for the brand owners is there.
Yes, it is. But they've lost people. They've lost their factory process right now, so they're just trying to crank back up again. Now, there may be inventory there that we don't know about, but I kind of believe intuitively that to get through their problem of the virus and the crisis we're in, they may have consumed all that inventory. They may have cranked it down. And then if they did not follow the correct protocols with the use of the ventilators and some of the equipment, it becomes one-time use. It's because of it being, infected with the virus. Remember, it lives a long time on different surfaces, and we don't even know the full incubation rate and things like that. Yeah, so we have no knowledge. Yeah, we have no knowledge. So the ability to take a ventilator from China, say, okay, I'm going to send it to India and use it, that sounds nice, but if it were me, I'm not sure I want that ventilator.
Yeah, but that's not my thought. My thought is that, I have a lot of respect for medical device companies, and, they're global, they're not regional, and that we have parts, in warehouses, and since 90% of the N95 masks were manufactured in China and 40% of the medical devices, maybe if we could see those global inventories of work in process parts, we could pick them up and get a leg up. But anyway, you're
but there is some, Laura, let me interrupt you for just a second. There is another factor here. Not all parts that are manufactured in some countries are exportable to other countries. So if I've got parts made, for example, in China, I cannot send those to South Korea. They won't accept them.
Right.
I built a large network for Smith & Nephew, who does medical part, shoulders, hips, knees, things like that. And the import-export rules are ridiculously complex. And the labeling of product and how you ship it and where you ship it, I think that's probably a large part of what's inhibiting us right now.
Well, I think we're saying the same thing. We can't look at this as a manufacturing regional supply chain issue. We need to look at it more holistically. And we're both hoping that we start to look outside in and build networks. And, I know you've decided to shut down the company that you co-founded to do blockchain. Why did you decide to shut it down?
I think we were basically forced into it. We built the product and had a few really good prototypes and pilots and things like that. We just could not get enough sales uptake. Just couldn't get it. And by the time we were really cranking through money and everything was occurring, we were moving very aggressively and nicely. We just flat projected a running out of money. So we had to cycle everything down and shut it down. Could not get further investors, could not get enough revenue.
So here you are in the market, Bob. You're very talented. I have a lot of respect for you. And you're looking for a new job. at the cusp of a pandemic. What are you finding?
It is tough. This is a very tough time. Personally, I've been, looking around for several months, and it's surprising how difficult it is to get through some of the AI filters that companies use. Unless you've got an exact fit and you fit every little word and every little piece, those AI filters, basically you can't even get to first base. So that's been interesting. But the most challenging thing, I think, right now is even with companies shut down, trying to get through into them and through into their supply chain people or even their IT people to help them configure the systems and build the systems up so that they can be adaptive to what's going on. I mean, it's been frustrating. It really has. There's tremendous need at all levels, but I think everybody's just trying to hunker down, given the large unemployment rate that's going to show up here shortly. And they're trying to just keep the lights on in their own companies right now.
Well, I wish you a lot of luck. And if anybody wants a really talented person to build value networks coming out of the pandemic, give Bob a call, particularly if you're interested in blockchain and digital transformation. Bob, join the Network and Networks work, and hopefully we can make a difference. And I appreciate you being on the show today. Until next time.
All right, Laura, thank you very much.